Hello everyone.
Hello everybody. So as part of our Startup from Scratch series, we're going to start today building an API for our To-Do app. So our API is going to take some request from a user or some client application that contains a to-do. It's going to save that to-do in an array, and then there's going to be another route within our API that we can call to get back all of our to-dos. It's going to be very simple. It's not going to talk to a database or anything. This is just going to be the skeleton that we will build out throughout this series. Eventually, we're going to save that stuff in a Postgres database.
What we will use to do this API?
So we're going to use JavaScript as our language, and we're going to use a library called Express.js, okay. Which is just a really easy and useful library for creating APIs like this.
Cool.
Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to make a folder called To-Do API. And inside of that, we're going to initialize a new Node.js project, so npm init. It's going to ask me a bunch of questions here. I'm just going to keep hitting enter because I don't really care about any of this stuff. But in your application, maybe you want to fill in some of this data. But for our use case, we're just going to go with the defaults. So now we have a file in here called package.json. If I just print out what's in that, you can see we have a name, a version, some description. We can edit all of this stuff. But the next thing that we're going to do is install that library I talked about, npm install express. And we need another thing called body parser, and what that helps us to do is read JSON bodies that our clients will send to us. So this acts as middleware. So between your server receiving a request and you having your root in your Node.js application that will deal with the request, body parser will sort of jump in and format the data in a way that you can read inside of your functions.
Cool.
So here we have body parser, and then we just do -- save, and that will save it to our package.json. There we go, all done. So if I cat this out now, you can see that there's two dependencies in here. Okay, so let's start to write our application. New window. Okay, and let's open that folder that we've just made. To-do API, cool. Okay, so now we're ready to write our server code. So we're going to call this index.js. And we are going to start off here with some imports. So let's import Express.
This is one of the way where we can import module.
Yeah, so we're just importing our library using this require keyword here. We can just pass in the name of the library and assign it to some constant here, and then we can use it throughout our application code. So we have our Express application, and we also want to import body parser. And we'll do that in the same way. Okay, so now we're ready to create an app. And we also want to pass in this body parser as some middleware. So we use app.use for that, and then we just pass in our body parser. And we specifically want to work with JSON here, so we use the JSON middleware. There are multiple other middleware that you can use, such as like raw data or URL encode it, but for our use case we don't need to do that. And then we're going to define a port for our application to run on. We're just going to use 3000 for local development purposes, and then we're ready to start our application. And the way that you do that is you just do app.listen, you pass in the port that we've defined, and then some function for you to run whenever your application starts. We're just going to print out a message that says that the server started. Server started on port, and then we just pass in the port variable there. So we can change that and it will update. Okay, so we have a server now, and we can run that server in VS Code. We just do this. We can run node.index.js. Damn it. I didn't save that. There we go. So server startup and port 3000.
Yeah.
We don't want to have to stop and start the server each time, so we're actually going to install this little thing that will help us with development called Node Daemon. So Node Daemon, and we will save this. And once that is complete, what we can do then is jump back into our package.json, and underneath scripts, we are going to create a new script for us to run called start, and this is going to run the node daemon on this file here. Okay, so now that we're saved that, instead of running node index.js, we can run npm run start, and now you can see down here that our server has started. But if I were to change the port on this and change it to 3001, you can see without me having to do anything,
It's always
rebooting.
listening every time we save the project.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'm just going to change that back to 3000 now, and now we're ready to create two routes. And what a route is imagine you have some URL, write it in the terminal here. So you have some URL in localhost and you're on port 3000. If we wanted to give our API some meaning, we would write to do, and then in your client code you would call this API route. So we're going to create a get. We'll do / and we'll call this to-dos, and then we pass in a simple function here. And right now this isn't going to be very useful because we don't have any way of storing our to-dos. So let's do that. We'll create an array called to-dos, and now inside of our get function we're going to return a status code of 200 because there's nothing really that can go wrong here. Then we're going to pass some JSON out, and we'll call this to-dos, and we need to use the little backtick quote so we can use variables inside of our strings, and we do this to-dos. Okay, very cool. So now we're ready to send a request up to our server. So if we go here and we do curl, it's to-dos. You can see now I get back some JSON here.
Yeah.
It's
As,
empty.
as our array now it's empty, we can receive nothing. So
So just to show how this would work,
Yeah.
we could do something like buy milk. Save that. If we were send a request again, we would get our buy milk back. Okay, but that's not very useful because no one wants to have to update application code to get their to-do list working. So we're going to create a post for this now. And what we're going to do is whenever you send a request to the server, the client will send along a JSON array with a to-do inside of it. So we do const to-do, and because of our middleware earlier, this body parser.json, we can read anything that's in that body inside of here. So what we're going to do is take our to-dos, and we're going to push that to-do inside of it, and this is going to do well, this doesn't need to do the same thing. We'll just say that status is complete here.
So we will leave the same path for the post also.
Yeah, that's right. So now whenever we send our curl request, we need to specify this to say that we're using the post HTTP method. We also need to define the type of content that we're sending. So we do content type application / JSON, and this is used by body parser to say, okay, I need to read the data from here. Then we do -d and
-d stand for
data. So this is going to be our post
Yeah.
body here, and we need to have a thing in here called to do, and this will be by washing powder. So we want to save this to our to-do list. Okay, we send that off, and we got a status of complete back. So now if I curl with the get request, I should get my array.
washing powder.
So let's just send another one, by sponges. Okay, complete again. And now if I do this, I've got by washing powder, by sponges. So there you go. That's a very simple to-do app that we've made, and we're going to improve on this over the coming weeks. But now we've got something that we can connect our client application to.
But in this case, we are not saving nothing. We are just using these to-dos that when the app will close, we don't have nothing in memory. So from the next video, we will try to use the database
Yep.
to keep in memory all our to-do list.
Mhm.
So before to close, I would say we can do a little summary about
Mhm.
what we did.
Yep,
So-
sure thing. Let's put some comments in here as we
Yeah.
go along. So up here is just everything that we need for our imports, and
Express, we say that it's a great library that we can use to build API easily.
yep,
And body parser is what will help us to translate our how you say middleware, no?
yeah. So body parser provides middleware, and that helps us to read requests that are sent to the server.
Okay.
Yeah.
In this case, we use .json
Yep.
for that. Okay.
So here we have our imports. Here is creating our application. Here we set up middleware, and then this is just these are just kind of like our variables that we use within our application. Okay, so that's all of that stuff. Here we have our routes, and we have two routes, a get, which will return out this array that we've defined up here, and our post, which will take some input from a request, push it into the to-dos array, and then send back a status of 200, and it will say that the transaction has been complete. And then down here we start our application.
Cool.
Okay, I think that's it.
Yeah, that's a cool video. Good video.
Okay guys, thanks everyone. Hope you subscribe to get more videos in this series. And
And how you should turn the bell on?
oh, you have to tap the bell icon, and that will give you notifications for whenever the next video in this series comes out.
Thank you.
Thanks.